Hey, what's up guys? Hope you all are doing great. My name is Frank Mularcik, and in this video I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on Satya Nadella's book, Hit Refresh. And as you can see here, it's about the quest to rediscover Microsoft's soul and imagine a better future for everyone. So everyone really seemed to enjoy the last book review I did on how to win friends and influence people. So I figured I'd do another one on this book that I recently finished. So if you didn't see that first video and want to see it, I will leave a link up here. So make sure to check that out. And also, if you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. I would really appreciate that, and it would really help out my channel. So just like with the past book review, before we get into the book itself, we're going to talk a little bit about Satya Nadella and who he is. So if you don't know, he's the current CEO of Microsoft Corporation. He was born in India, and he received a bachelor's in electrical engineering from the Manipali Institute of Technology. So he wasn't exactly the best of students. I'm sure he was a good student, but not really the top tier. So he didn't get into any of the really top schools in India, but he got his bachelor's and then attended the University of Michigan, where he received a master's in computer science. And he also later received an MBA from the University of Chicago. So aside from a few years, he worked at Sun Microsystems in the early 1990s. Satya has basically worked at Microsoft for the majority of his career ever since then, when he started there in 1992. And he quickly worked his way up through the leadership ranks, and he was a major leader in the company's move to cloud computing through Microsoft Azure. If you know a little bit about Microsoft, they were really behind Amazon in their cloud services and stuff like that. So he really worked to accelerate their growth and help them catch up a little bit. And in 2014, he was announced as the new CEO of Microsoft, which makes him only the third person to hold that role after Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer. And there's actually a pretty cool picture I'll put up here from the day when it was publicly announced that he would be taking over as CEO, where all three of those guys are in the same picture together. And it's just a cool picture because they're basically legends, I guess, in the technology world. So it's just cool they're all there together. So as I said before, Satya Nadella became CEO in 2014, and then in 2017, about 3 years later, he wrote this book, Hit Refresh, and according to him, it's about us humans and a unique quality we call empathy, which will become even more valuable in a world where the torrent of technology will disrupt the status quo like never before. So that's basically what he had to say about the purpose of the book. So the first few chapters were mostly about him and his personal life, how he grew up and how he got to Microsoft. And it just helps the reader understand some of the unique perspective that Satya has and has gained along the way. For example, his son is legally blind and has cerebral palsy, which that experience and having to adjust his life to those kind of changes have definitely shaped him and changed him. So that's just sort of interesting little bit. It's more of a biography, but it sort of helps the reader understand where he's coming from with his leadership and his writing of the book. So the main portion of the book focuses on the change that he has enacted at Microsoft since he became CEO and how he wants to keep that going and where he wants to see that in the future. So that's sort of where the title Hit Refresh comes, because it's all about taking a step back and reevaluating where we're at and making a cultural change within the company. He talks a lot throughout the book about the mission statement of Microsoft, which is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And so he wants all of his employees to use Microsoft as sort of a tool for them to pursue things that they're passionate about and also fulfill that mission statement at the same time. So for example, going back to his son, who has some disabilities, there were some people at Microsoft who were interested in that sort of thing. And so they made some software and technology where his son could change music that he was listening to and just do some sort of simple tasks that were normally a lot harder and he had to get someone else's help for. But that sort of made him more free and independent. So that's sort of what he's looking for in his employees. So a lot of this cultural shift, as he explains, was sort of around collaboration and friendliness throughout Microsoft and really across the business landscape. He said when he was in the early 2000s There was lots of competition, like sort of between departments at Microsoft, and there wasn't a lot of working together. So he wants people within the organization to collaborate more and throughout the business world. One example of this is partnerships that Microsoft and Apple have had together, and they're often seen as two of their biggest competitors, but they also work together on some things. For example, a few years ago, Microsoft made Office products like OneDrive and Outlook available on iPhones and iPads and Apple products in general, because for Microsoft, this ensured that their Office's values were available to everyone, and also that made Apple users able to use those products, which would make them happier as well. So that was all about making everyone have more technology and more ease of life, and that really benefited Apple and Microsoft together. And also, Microsoft developers were even working with Apple on the iPad Pro to make Office 365 the best it could be, so to work with the iPad Pro. So that's just one example of the many collaborations that Microsoft has made in an effort to sort of just have the best experience for their customers and do the best they can for everyone. So that's sort of some of the main things that Satya talked about in the main part about Microsoft's culture. And then in the last section of the book, he talks about a lot about where he sees Microsoft going in the future. And he talks about three big innovations that he thinks will change the world. And those are mixed reality, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing. And so a lot of what Microsoft is about productivity, and these three things are basically just tools that he sees as enhancing productivity. So he really gets into the nitty gritty of some technological things with them, and I thought that was personally really interesting. I'm sort of interested in technology and computer science myself, and also as a Microsoft shareholder, that was interesting to see where they're going with the company. So I think this part of the book was definitely my favorite part. I definitely learned a lot about the different technologies and where they're going in the company and what they're working on. So that really made me feel good as a shareholder. So overall, I really, really enjoyed this book. It was, for me, a good mix of sort of a biography about Satya Nadella and a reflection on Microsoft and what they're doing and how they're trying to change. And also it was sort of a commentary on some future technologies and where Satya sees them going and sees Microsoft taking them. So I would definitely recommend this book for anyone who's interested in technology and how it's going to integrate into our day-to-day lives, even more so in the future. And also, if you're a Microsoft shareholder, I think it definitely will be able to give you a good understanding of Microsoft and their business model and how they're trying to move forward and push the limits of technology into the future. The quote of the video is, "The view you adopt for yourself profoundly affects the way you lead your life." And of course, this is from Satya Nadella. And I think it really just speaks to his outlook on life and the culture that he wants to have in Microsoft. So I just wanted to include this. I thought it was a good wrap up to tie into the book itself. And I thought it was a good quote as well. That's going to wrap it up for today's video. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say about Satya Nadella's book, Hit Refresh. I really appreciate everyone who's been watching recently, and especially if you're watching all the way to the end. I really appreciate that, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.